Hello yogis, this is a test video, a little tutorial on some fundamental movement and alignment postures that we need to keep in mind as we move through both yoga and any other discipline in working out like yoga sculpt or your lifting programs or your cardio programs, walking, jogging, running, all of that combined. What I want to concentrate on today is the favorite squat. So when we squat, a couple things going on. What we want to make sure is we start with good foundation. So as I recommend, I like to stand with my feet a little wider than hip distance apart. My feet are parallel towards each other. If you've got your high school geometry, this is parallel, this is not parallel, this is parallel. The only reason I suggest starting with parallel feet is that, this is not incorrect, but if I start with parallel feet, I can really watch my alignment. In other words, I can see if my knees are staying in line with my ankles as I go down, or if they're collapsing in or out. If I put my feet at about a 45-degree angle, I really want to make sure I'm driving my knees out, almost in a plie. The issue with that is I need to stand a little wider even to make sure I'm staying in my stability. Okay, so that's why I talk about starting with feet parallel. So that's kind of what that's all about. As we go down in our squat, it is not a vertical movement, it is a shifting back. So the way we do that, and we balance the weight, we give ourselves a little bit of a hinge forward. So what I'm doing is I'm activating my core a little bit, getting my glutes to fire up first. I don't want my quads firing up, I want my glutes firing up. So as I go down on my squat, I'm shifting my hips back behind me like I'm sitting in a chair. But I'm looking forward, going down, glutes are active, I feel them engaged, coming back up, driving with the force of my legs and my quads. Perfect alignment means that the angle that my torso is at matches the angle of my shins. So if I'm doing this, I'm not in good form. This angle is much more acute. It is deeper than the angle of my shins. So I want to start with a soft knee, tall, hinging forward, looking at where my ankles are, looking at my torso, shifting hips back, activating core to start with, shift back, and then driving through with my legs. All right? This is a good standard squat. And I'm feeling this really in all the muscles in my legs. Biggest muscles, strongest muscles in our body, in our legs. Boom. So that's our squat. Remember, get yourself stable first. Feet, hip distance a little wider than that apart, parallel to start with. As you get more adept and stronger at squat, and you want to add variation, then you can start taking your feet out at a 45-degree angle. Again, I suggest maybe stepping a little wider if you do that. And remember, it's still going back and then driving up. What you want to avoid is having your feet forward and your knees out or in, collapsing, okay? So that's the idea. Now, I see this all the time. I see people going to squats like this, especially with weights on, the muscle guys at the gym with these huge weights at the Smith machines going down to here and then coming up. I have just totally wrenched my back. As I go down to this position, it is almost impossible for me to keep that neutral, small, lower part of my spine. So it naturally rounds forward. That's not what we want, especially with that kind of load on their shoulders. These guys are really having a lot of load. They wear these weight belts. A lot of people believe that if you're wearing a weight belt, it's a crutch, and you're doing something that your body would not normally be able to do, or you're not ready for it. In other words, you're adding too much resistance, not building up to that resistance. So remember, your quads should be parallel with the ground. Parallel, parallel. So as I come down, I'm sitting in my chair. I'm not sitting down here where my hips are below my knees. I'm coming just where my hips are my knees. Now, if that's not possible for you for lots of reasons, maybe you've got a range of motion issue. Maybe you're not strong enough yet, so you're just beginning this journey. That's perfectly fine. You come down to here, and then you come right on up. You're still getting the benefit. I'm still engaging my glutes to start with, my core is ready, I've got good form looking forward, and I'm driving up through my legs. So getting down to here is our goal, but maybe for you, you're starting a little shallower. Or maybe it just doesn't feel comfortable in your knees. There's lots of kinetic reasons, lots of movement reasons why you would want to limit your range of motion, okay? So as we do more, we get stronger, or maybe that's the space for you to be in, which is perfectly fine. I found a really wonderful way to do bicep curls. not with barbells. We're going to use a dumbbell or anything else. Now, if you're not using weights, you're not using resistance, that's not a problem. I'm going to grab my weight over here where my weight equipment is. I'm going a little heavier than I normally do. This is just a 12-pound. But what I like about it, it's got a bigger end, and I can have a better grip. So I saw this on a guy that I follow on Instagram and YouTube, and he's really this jacked up, shredded, kind of guy, and he's doing kind of extreme stuff at some point. I mean, he lives in the gym, and then he just puts it out there on YouTube, and he makes his money that way. But I found but the good news about him, his name is Athlete X. He does have some really good background. So when he talks about a movement he's doing, he talks about what muscle fibers are working, how we maintain form, how that form helps us isolate a certain muscle group that we're meant to be moving, and also how that helps us support that muscle group. Again, stabilization. So typically we're doing a bicep curl like this, and I see a lot of swinging going on, or here, they're just doing here. So what this guy does is he eliminates the two dumbbells. He's got one dumbbell. He's kind of cradling it here, and his elbows are at his side. He starts down here, and it's as though he's trying to keep the top of the dumbbell flat. So as it comes up, and then releases all the way down. Again, coming all the way up, and slowly all the way down. And coming back up, and slowing all the way down. So we're coming up for a 1 count, we're down for 1 and 2. And a 1 count up, and a 1 and a 2. So from the side you can see, keeping that top of that dumbbell flat. He calls this a waiter curl. And it's W-A-I-T-E-R versus W-A-D-E-R. So again, keeping it up and flat. So I've just done about 5 or 6 of those, and I'm really already feeling it here. So I'm really isolating my bicep, I'm allowing the bicep to work, I'm stabilizing it by being able to keep my elbows in a stable position, versus a lot of people have them too far forward, too far back, too far out, too far in. So it eliminates all that. So I thought it was a really great takeaway this week for bicep curls. I've been kind of playing around with them myself this week. So hinging when we get into our squats, remember it's a hinge back, driving those hips back, and then pushing through with our legs. When I come up, I give my hips a little bit of a push forward. It helps kind of realign the spine nice and tall, chest is tall, and it makes me remember to make sure that my torso is engaged. So I hinge it back, boom, and then up. Now as we add resistance to our squats, it's easy just to do a weighted squat with the weight here at your shoulders. I like this for me this week. And the reason I like it is because I'm still coming back from it over the arm stuff with my left side. So that's a really good place to be. Remember, always, you don't even have to do resistance. The movement and alignments are really critical. And if you do them right, you become more efficient in your movement. You'll reduce or eliminate the possibility of injury, especially if you really think your mind is connected up. What I find myself doing, especially when I'm in a yoga class, is I get into my breath, I'm moving in a power flow, I'm feeling pretty good, I'm feeling really sweaty, I'm feeling like, oh, make sure that your breath's matching your movement, don't get hyperventilating. And then all of a sudden, my mind takes off somewhere else. It goes to the happy place when I'm finished with my yoga, or when can I get a shower, or what else have I got going on today? Am I going to the market to shop after this, or, When I do that, my mind just gets disconnected from my body, and that's what my breath is meant to do, is to keep them combined. So I find myself oftentimes moving through a workout and finding that I'm not really at that moment. I'm not really making sure that my mind and my body and my breath all link together. So remember, that's a critical element as well. And if adding resistance throws that off, don't add the resistance. Or if not doing resistance, it works both ways. So maybe you're so used to adding resistance and extra load, weight, that if you don't do it, you don't know what's going on, it feels too easy, your mind starts to kind of wander, add the resistance you need to. The last thing I'm going to do before I stop this little tutorial is talk about Warrior 2, or any of the split leg yoga stances, okay? I think I mentioned a little bit in one of my videos when we were doing some yoga too, but we're going to do a sculpt video and we're going to add some Warrior 2 here. It's about our SI joint. And what happens is, as I step forward and back, and I'm at classic Warrior 2. So my front foot is pointing forward, my back foot is parallel to the back edge of my mat. if I took an imaginary line and I went from my heel and drew it all the way along my mat. That's why some mats have these beautiful lines so you can see your alignments. I gotta get me one of those. Vita Force or something, I have them. Anyway, they're a Life Force, I think they have them. They're awesome, I really, really want to get them. That's the classic yoga stance. And if I go into a deep lunge here, the idea is to keep our hips flat. So as I rotate my hip flat, my front leg as you naturally internally rotates. But I want to do this. I'm getting a stretch here. Well, what's happening is I'm completely weakening my SI joint. And naturally, my hip wants to come in a little bit. That's where I'm strongest. And that's where this is really engaged and this is engaged. If I push this back and I start wobble my knee, it's really flexible. And if someone did it to me, I'd probably topple over. If this hip's a little forward and I'm down in this posture, no amount of movement here is going to topple me because my SI joint is engaged. There's a woman, Donna Fari, I think her name is, and she's a beautiful yogi. She works through Yoga University, Yoga U. It's a great site, a lot of good information, a lot of good conversation going on there. And it's something that I've struggled with this posture for a long, long time. The way I used to get into it was I'd come up, get my legs set, make sure I'm in a deep lunge, boom, looking to the side, trying to keep my hips and my shoulders oriented to the side, and then just swiveling my head forward. Pretty good, huh? But if I'm a little bit more pushed this way, I'm a lot more stable, I can go deeper, and then I have movement without falling. I'm really, really solid there. So think about that. As you come into your warriors or any split leg stance, make sure that that back SI joint is stable. Yoga started about 5,000 years ago, and we didn't know a lot about anatomy at that time, and particularly with the constituency of yoga. As I always say in some of my classes when I kind of kiddingly say, well, the full expression of this posture is thus and such, and they're like, what the hell? I cannot, thank you, yogi assistant. This is Gus. He's my yoga assistant. He manages low-tech studios here. So all your emails go to him. So 5,000 years ago, we didn't have a lot of kinetic knowledge about what our body's doing. Plus, the audience of yoga, young boys, getting ready, they were in the monastery studying, and they were getting ready to go meditate, and the sort of elders decided, this kid's got a lot of energy, they're kind of rambunctious, let's get them tired out. Yoga was created, the movement, the hatha yoga, movement yoga was created to tire them out, and that resulted in a quiet and still mind, and they were ready to sit for an hour, 40 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days. That was the purpose of movement yoga. That's why in the West, we really kind of separate yoga, the physical discipline, the hatha yoga, of which hot yoga, power yoga, gentle yoga, restorative yoga, Ashtanga yoga. There's so many different branches of yoga and styles of yoga that put things together in different ways, and a lot of people ascribe, well, if you want to center your heart, do this kind of yoga. That's not really my vibe, that's not really my gig. I love the physicality of yoga and the fact that it keeps me moving and stretching, and the more I think about alignment and being safe, the more yoga I get to do because I'm not injured. I don't have to stay off the mat for a couple days. So when we think about yoga, and we now know so much more about the way our bodies function and work, we don't have to be slavish to those alignments. Also, when I'm in this position, a split leg stance is very narrow and very challenging, okay? The way balance works is, boom, feet apart, solid. My feet together, I've narrowed my base, so I'm a little less strong. I can put one foot in front of the other, again, still a little strong. One foot in front of the other, staggered. This is even less solid. And then finally, I can have one foot stacked in front of the other. That's the, and then finally balancing on one foot. So this is a pretty challenging base where I have my feet stacked in front of the other and they're touching to do things, to look at this and do this and this and this and this, all that kind of stuff. I'm throwing my center of gravity off. So as we learn more about our body mechanics, feel free to alter. This, drawing that line, bisecting my arch. However, if that's not comfortable for you, take this front foot and stagger it off to the side a little more so that it would be at an angle. And if you feel comfortable here, great. Keep it there. As you move and become more familiar with what your body's doing, start to bring that foot in, okay? That makes it a little bit more challenging for you. So these are all little tidbits. And feel free to modify your postures. If there's any questions, you guys send me an email back about that stuff, because modifications are very specific to us. So it's hard, I mean, I can talk in generalizations, but sometimes it's not appropriate, or that's not the thing that works for you. For you and your specific body type and your background and your journey in yoga or fitness or wellness, maybe you've been doing it for a long, long time and you're thinking, wow, I've got some ingrained stuff from 30 or 40 years ago when I started working out and being fit and being active to today, and my body can't break the habit. Okay, let's talk about that. Or, wow, I've just kind of started yoga and I'm not really sure it's for me, but I want to really give it a fair chance. What should I be looking for? What should I do? The worst thing, I think, is when you go into either a class or you watch a video or whatever your training comes from, where you feel like the language isn't basic and it's not inclusive. And what I mean by that is that there's not given any options. So people say, well, this is where, this is a great place to be. This is a great place to be. Or move this foot forward, or move it back, or come narrower, or go wider, or do this or this or this. All those are great cues and can help someone find where they need to be to navigate their workouts, okay? So we'll leave these as a little tutorial. I'll post it on the old YouTube, and then I'm gonna get together for a yoga sculpt video. The yoga sculpt video will be a little different. I'm going to link it to this tutorial so that it'll be obvious that this tutorial, if you're interested in watching it, will go before the actual workout. We're going to start with our typical yoga, kind of warming ourselves up for about 20 minutes or so, kind of getting some sun salutation rounds in, and maybe some warriors, some crescent lunges, some twisting and rotations, which I love to do. But then we're going to be doing a 45-15 pattern, and then we're going to add 24 segments. So it's a 24-minute workout. So it's pretty intense, but some of the stuff I talked about in this video we're going to use in that workout, okay? So that's kind of where I'm headed for. So thank you guys. See you guys in the next video where we get our workout in, and bring lots of water. You're going to need it on this one. All right? Thanks, guys.